There are a lot of things that go into surviving as a solo player in Dark and Darker that I really think will help new players out. And here are 25 of those solo tips that I wish I would have known before I started playing. Number 1, try each class. I know we all have our preferences from other games, but I would highly encourage new players to try each class and see how their playstyle matches your intuitive preference. They feel different, have different gear, skills, perks, pros and cons. I tried them all before I landed on the fighter as my preferred dungeon dweller. I usually like to play barbarians, but I never would have thought to end up on the fighter beforehand. But if I would have just not tried to force myself into a role that I normally play, this first step would have been a much easier transition. Number 2, listen to the audio cues. Something I cannot understate is the audio in this game and its importance. It will let you know what type of NPC is around the corner or through the door, what kind of armor an enemy player is wearing, whether they're barefoot or if they have metal-clad boots on, or even how many there are, if someone is opening a door, and most importantly, when the escape portals pop out of the ground, you can hear the stone-like grinding sound as they appear. Number 3, take advantage of the darkness. It is called Dark and Darker for a reason. It is your friend, especially as a solo. Every chance I get, every chance you get, put out the torches on the wall. They allow you to hide and listen to the audio cues in step 2. They give me a place to retreat to if I make a bad call, and they allow me to watch other players from a safe distance, or not so safe because I'm in the dark. Wait for them to unknowingly close the gap and then strike. Number 4, choose your battles carefully. Now this one was a learning curve for me. I often overestimated my abilities and underestimated my opponent's abilities. This is especially important when you start getting comfortable and confident with your gameplay. Just because you are alone doesn't mean you need to make your own opportunities. Sometimes all you have to do is wait for a good opening, waiting for a team to clash with an opposing team, waiting for a duo or trio to start clearing a room full of undead, or maybe striking as they are by a campfire or applying a surgical kit. All great times to attack that will give you a substantial advantage over the enemy. As a solo player, there is a fine line between being gutsy and reckless, and often if you start a fight without adhering to the last 2 tips and the tips following, it will end up costing you. Number 5, be patient. You are by yourself with no backup other than what you bring in your inventory. This links up with tips 2, 3, and 4 well enough. You will be patient with a purpose, waiting to see where the closing circle goes, waiting to see if players pass you by if you are at a choke point that leads deeper into the dungeon, paying attention to the audio cues, etc. Patience will save your life. The world around you continues to move and continues to develop even though you are not. You aren't reacting to anything. You are waiting for the world to react to the other players, and then you make decisions based on that information. Number 6, light armor. When I first started, I saw all the players in the lobby with plate armor, and I thought, that's the way I should play. And I honestly thought that was right. But now, after playing, that was totally wrong for a solo player. I have had more success using light armor as a solo than plate armor as a solo, and the reason is because of speed. As a solo, you need to be able to evade, back away, retreat, and make quick movements to outmaneuver a duo or trio. You simply can't do that as a plate-wearing tank going solo and chunking along through the darkness. Plate-wearing players are great to take the aggro for NPCs and players if they are in the group, but as a solo, the point is not to gain aggro. The point is to be patient, wait in the darkness, listen to the audio, and strike when the time is right. And then you can retreat back. Number 7, don't be fooled by the rarities. There are 8 rarities in the game that range from cracked all the way to unique. I say don't be fooled by them, not because they aren't good, but because you may get starstruck by the great looking enchantments or even the color of the item itself and the stats and think they will save you, when in all honesty, tactics will win over gear most times in this game. And there are many times where you will come across a normal tier armor or weapon set that has stats that are more attuned to what you need in your playstyle than what a flashy legendary or unique tier would be. Don't be fooled by the rarities. Number 8. Do a bunch of fresh spawn runs first. Each time you die, you start a new round with a specific set of starter armor and weapons. I would highly encourage new players to do a bunch of runs into the dungeons to familiarize yourself with the map, the NPCs, player spawns, and your own general comfort level being in the zone without losing any gear. You will find that you'll begin living longer, maybe even long enough to make it out of the dungeon with an inventory full of stuffs to sell, which leads to my next point. Number 9. Stock up on gear with your winnings. When you start making it out of the dungeon, you will hopefully be grabbing some loot to sell at the merchants. When you do that and get some gold back, buy some basic equipment that will leave you with a leg up on your opponents. These things are not too expensive. I am talking about like the Regal Gambeson or the Templar armor. None are expensive, but will give you some much needed armor for the late game when you need it the most. Number 10. Traps. If you look at the mini-map, you can see where the traps are at. This will help you avoid or evade them, or it'll even help you set up ambush points whenever you know that a team is coming in that direction. The floor spike traps can be triggered by throwing your torch at it with right-click, and you can simply walk over it without taking any damage. 11. Secret paths. You'll come across a few different kinds of secret paths in the dungeon to include movable rock walls, wood planks that can be broken, and even a book you can pull on the bookshelf. These will lead to treasure chests, loot, and maybe even allow you access to a different part of the map without being noticed by other players that would normally outnumber you. 12. Weapon selection. As you play, you will notice that each weapon has a different striking pattern indicated by the directional marker at the center of your screen. Memorize that. Figure out your preferred weapon and stick to it. Each weapon has a different swing speed, swing direction, and combo, and selecting the right weapon for you is part of determining your success. This also goes into the environment in which you decide to attack your opponents. If it's a side swing coming from right to left or left to right, and you are in an enclosed area like a tunnel, you are going to hit the wall, it will not break through, and you're never going to hit your opponent. So you need to choose your weapon and your conditions of attack wisely. Number 13, consumables. There are a variety of consumables in this game to include healing potions, potions of protection, invisibility potions, bandages, ales, and surgical kits. This is not an in-depth video about the different rarity stats of these consumables, but just know that not all consumables are made equal. Some will heal you or buff you more than others. You will see this if you go to the alchemist and try and buy some healing potions and see they are different prices. I would recommend having a healing potion and a couple bandages on you when you go in the dungeon, and even start stocking up on them after each successful raid. Surgical kits have saved me a couple of times because though it takes a while to complete the action, it restores full health. Be careful though, because although you can cancel the action, it leaves you vulnerable to an attack, which leads to my next point, number 14. Situational awareness. This might sound a lot like tip 2 and 5. It certainly incorporates aspects of the auto cues and patience. However, it's more than that. Situational awareness is understanding your environment and making a judgment call on what is appropriate for you to do and where. For example, these two individuals below thought they were the only ones in the area after defeating a couple NPCs. And because of this lack of situational awareness, one of them decided to start using a surgical kit to heal up. This showed me that he was desperately injured, and so I took full advantage of his weakened state. I hopped down, killed them, stole some insane loot, got rich off their hard work. Then, as you see, I put a torch out and used his own surgical kit to heal me up. 15. The starting lobby. At the beginning of each round, you will begin in a tavern setting with other players. You can inspect their gear and punch their faces, even have your own face punched while you all wait to spawn in. Scope out the competition during this time if you have time. Sometimes they start quicker than others. And remember the more powerful looking players and think about how to beat them at the end if either of you make it. Also, please note that if you use your character skills cooldowns here, they will not be resupplied when the dungeon begins. Number 16, dungeon types. Now there are two different dungeons, normal, where you will spend most of your time, and high roller, a more challenging but more rewarding dungeon. The high roller costs 70 gold per playthrough and has increased drop rate for high quality loot and is the only way to obtain unique tier items. There is no kill feed, no timer, and the enemies will appear as elite in nightmare difficulty. There are 3 different difficulties of dungeon outside of high roller. You have level 1, which is currently being worked on, level 2, hard, which is where we are all currently playing, and there are 2 maps in there, Crypt 1 and Crypt 2, and then you have level 3, hell difficulty. This is the level you go into after entering the red portal. The maps of level 3 are titled Inferno 1 and Inferno 2, and they have unique bosses to battle. Number 17, portals. There are 2 different kinds of portals in this game. A blue one for escaping and allows a single person to use, and a red portal that allows a 3-person team to descend further into the dungeon but not escape with their loot. Your situation as a solo will determine which of these you will use. Survival is the name of the game, and if time is running out and you are only seeing red portals, it looks like you are either going to go deeper into the dungeon or you will wait for the plague to consume you and die. Please note though that if you do decide to go deeper into the dungeon, you will not have an opportunity to drop off whatever other gear you gathered previously. Number 18. Shrines. There are 5 shrines, one of protection, speed, health, power, and resurrection. The first 4 are important to you as solos, as the 5th is used to revive a fallen teammate. The Shrine of Protection will give you a buff that reduces incoming damage. The Shrine of Speed, or Fountain of Speed, will allow you to move faster. The Shrine of Health will restore all health, similar to the surgical kit, and the Shrine of Power will give your character a damage increase. You can see the duration of these buffs above your character's health bar at the center bottom screen. 19. The zone. We are all familiar with a moving circle and a red zone by this point in our lives. It's 2022 and games have done that for years. You already know that if you stay in the red, you die, and anything inside the white circle is quote-unquote safe. Inside the red zone is what they call the death swarm, which will try and eat your soul, and as such you will slowly take damage. That being said, the damage is not that significant, so if you have to choose between going towards a trio and backtracking into the swarm to find an alternate route, I would probably choose the latter. Number 20. Enemies. Different rooms and dungeons will have different enemies, and those enemies will have different difficulty levels. The difficulties are normal, elite, and nightmare, like I covered a little bit earlier. If you noticed a skeleton running at you at Mach 5, you know it's not normal, and probably elite. There are also mini-bosses starting in the crypts and going down into Inferno. Now these mini-bosses are the Wraith and the Skeleton Champion, who both appear in the Crypt and Inferno. And then you have the Centaur, who only appears in the Inferno. There are bosses called the Lich and Ghost King that show up in Inferno as well. All I'm going to say is that for a solo, it will be near impossible for you to take on a mini-boss or boss. My plan of action would be to wait for a trio to take one of those bosses or mini-bosses on, hopefully win and take some manpower losses, and then while they lick their wounds, maybe apply a surgical kit again, take them down as quickly as possible, take the loot, and run. Number 21. Poison Cloud. When you are fighting a zombie, they have a chance of producing a poison cloud. Now this may not sound like much of a tip, but listen, this is important because this poison cloud follows the player that attacked it. So if you are tracking a player and you see a dead zombie and you're trying to get a more advantageous position, you see a cloud turning a corner, you know a player went in that direction. Use this information to your advantage. Number 22. Spider Jars. You will enter rooms that have spiders that are easily killable within 1 to 2 hits depending on your weapon. You will then notice that they keep coming and have the potential to overwhelm you. They are coming from a jar, and they will keep coming until you destroy it. Food for thought. Last thing you need is to be outnumbered by and zerged by spiders as a solo. Number 23. Merchants. The importance of the merchants will change depending on the class you choose, but some merchants are important for every class. They include the alchemist, who you buy potions from, the surgeon, who you buy bandages from, the treasurer, who you can buy coin purses from and exchange silver pieces to, and the collector, who will make you rich by purchasing all the jewels and gems you find. Depending on the time of year, there are special merchants. As it is currently December while I write this, we have Santa, who will sell powerful goods in exchange for candy canes that are found in the dungeon. Never forget to stock up and sell after you plunder the dungeon. As a solo, it's important to make that money. Number 24. Utility items. There are many useful ones, such as the torch that you spawn in with, 3 of them to be exact, that illuminate dark areas and can be used to trigger spike traps. But there is also the campfire kit, one of my favorites. The campfire is quite literally a campfire that you set up and relax by to regain health and skill points depending on the rarity of the campfire. Another utility item that is great for solo players is the explosion bottle. It is essentially a Molotov cocktail that blows up in a small radius and cause burning effects. This is a great way to get a jump on a duo or trio and ambush them, dealing damage simultaneously to all of them. And last but not least, probably one of the most important tips in this video, Tip 25, guerrilla warfare, or as I like to call it, strike and shadow. The worst thing solo players do is stay in a fight for too long. If you encounter a duo or trio and find an opportune time to engage, that's great, but don't overstay your welcome. Try and kill one that has strayed from the pack and retreat into the darkness. You can wait for the remaining teammates to loot the body, grab the heart of his friend. During this time, you can heal up if necessary, or better yet, attack them. If you choose not to attack them while they loot their friend, follow them back to a resurrection altar and kill them while they try to bring their teammate back. Don't act like you're invincible. Always be evasive, strike, and shadow. And that is the end of the video. Go ahead and leave your solo tips in the comments below, and if you made it this far, please consider subscribing for more content like this. Thank you all for watching. Happy surviving. Path out.